Well, good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of Islandstad Sports Talk. Joining me is the interim CEO of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, Mr. Glenn Jones. Glenn, yesterday you guys announced that Bermuda will start the 2021 SailGP season. Just want to kind of get an insight into how these things come about. How do they kind of benefit the community in Bermuda, especially the sailing community? And what can we look forward to down the road? But take us through how this came to fruition.
Good to be with you, Earl. In the first instance, the way that this came about is very unusual. We were already in a discussion with SailGP about Bermuda being a stop in 2022, which would have amounted to season 3 for them. And as they were approaching season 2, which was scheduled to be in San Francisco as the launch, they started to get uncertain about their ability to make it work in California because of the state of the pandemic. So they came to us and they said, listen, what if we moved our discussions 12 months earlier and had it in 2021? And the level of planning, as you know, involved with these events makes that a ridiculous request. It only makes sense in the current environment that we're in. And Bermuda is on a short list of countries that sports organizers feel comfortable that the environment is enough controlled, that Bermuda can almost be its own bubble to allow the sport to proceed safely. And then I think what we were able to do this past October with the Bermuda Championship and the World 10 Series for rugby and the Bermuda Gold Cup sort of elevated their confidence. So we were able to kind of bring it together for next April. So now April 24th and 25th, we're expected to be the season 2 first stop for SailGP. And importantly, at least for our community, there will be a training camp before the season starts. So 7 teams, perhaps even 8 teams in Bermuda getting ready for the season, where they'll be a part of our community. And that's the part, I think, that amplifies not only the economic benefit, but the social engagement piece of this, where young sailors can learn from these professionals, local sailing clubs can get involved. So we're really excited about that element of things as well.
What is the dollar value for us to be in this kind of atmosphere, of what we would have to put out in order to return?
So we've been thinking about this event much like the World Series, the America's Cup World Series in 2015, if you recall, kind of in Hamilton. It was a 2-day event as well. The economic impact for our community was between 6 and 8 million for that. There's a lot of things that are true today that weren't true now, the pandemic being one of them. So it's really, really hard to hammer down on exactly what the impact will be, but that's sort of been what we've been using as the template for us thinking about the economic involvement. In terms of what the Bermuda Tourism Authority investment will be, we're not prepared to talk about that just yet, but only because event procurement right now is very sensitive, and we don't want to sort of bias the process for anybody else who's considering working with SailGP. But I'm pretty confident that when all this is said and done, our community will see a really good return on investment here. And importantly, this time around, there's no revenue guarantee for the organizers. That's something that people might remember from the America's Cup, where if the organizers were not able to raise the money that they were looking for, there was a guarantee that the money would be covered by taxpayers. There's no such arrangement this time around. SailGP will have to go out and raise money to put on this event, but the risk is all theirs. If they, for some reason, should fall short of their sponsorship raising goal, the taxpayer is not on the hook. So there's a lot more room for a really strong return on investment this time around.
Yeah. So what would be our guarantee of what we have to provide for them once they get on island? I know we have to give them some parts of land, some parts of stuff. I mean, when the America's Cup was here, we gave them the Dockyard facility to have their sheds and all that, and they're going to be here for 4 weeks. Some of this stuff is not available anymore.
Yeah, no, that's also a very good question. So there is a separate agreement between SailGP and the government for in-kind services. What sorts of things have the government agreed to help them with, not in exchange for cash, but just in helping them get it done? So we were able to get that agreement organized before going public with this announcement. And then they have a separate agreement with WEDCO for the facilities and things that they will need there. I think most of that is in kind, but there might be some cash involved there as well. I'm not as familiar with that idea, but you're right. They did have to work out in advance what the needs will be, and in kind especially, in order to make this event go. And what we were able to do is bring the economic equation to the table and say, all right, well, if this happens, we think this could be the return for, spending at vendors in Dockyard, real estate rentals, transportation services, and on and on and on. So the math works out quite nicely. And I think in this case, SailGP didn't have a lot of options. And that gave Bermuda a lot of leverage in this case, because there's not, you can't take this spectacular sailing event anywhere in the world right now. There's a small list of places where it will work. Yeah.
When we look at, there's going to be 2 days of racing, unlike the America's Cup, where we had a multitude of race days and in between race days and all that. The 4 weeks of training and then the 2 days is almost similar to a build-up such as what we have for Cup Match, because it's going to be a 2-day event. How do we plan to make sure that the atmosphere is one like the America's Cup, and what does that look like from the surface?
That's a good question. So I think what you can expect is a lot of activity in Dockyard, because Cross Island will be used again. And I think you can expect a lot of activity in Hamilton, sort of the bookends of the Great Sound, so to speak. I think there will be a lot of ground activity in those two places. And then the ability to also spectate from the water around the Great Sound. Unfortunately, beyond that, I can't tell you a whole lot, because this is being put together very, very quickly. And one of the things that SailGP is going to do in December is figure out a complete sort of a journey map of how this all looks. But because many of the people at SailGP worked in the America's Cup, they have complete confidence that they can figure it out in that short runway, because they've done the site visits. They know the size of the Great Sound. They know all of the assets we have around the Great Sound. So they have a running start in that way. Yeah.
How does this look for the sailing community in Bermuda? How do they get involved? How do they benefit from something of this sort? Because obviously we don't sail these boats, so there's no way that someone is going to buy one or keep it once it's over and done with, let alone if they'll even offer that. But how does this benefit particularly the sailing community?
Yeah, so here's my hope around this. Two responses for you on this. One is, I've really, as a result of this discussion with SailGP, gotten to know better the comet racing community here in Bermuda. And they had great ambitions this year about having a comet championships in Bermuda this year, but COVID ruined that. And they are already working on trying to salvage that for 2021. And when I speak to them, one of the main barriers is they don't know to what extent these sailors in North America who sail the comets are going to be ready to travel next June when the event will be. People are still nervous about that. I see a connection where us having the exposure of SailGP, showing the world how we can put on this event safely, can really inspire those comet racers that, like, you know what, we can go to Bermuda. Look what they have in place to not only make it enjoyable, but very safe. And if I'm going to make my first travel experience for sailing, it should be Bermuda. I mean, look what they've been able to put together. So we've started a conversation with that committee who's working on the Comet Championships to see how we make these things two more connected, so that they inspire each other to have sailing in Bermuda next year. So that some of this is a dream, Earl, because we have to go and make that work. But I think these are the kind of opportunities that present themselves when Bermuda goes out and gets an event like this. And then the other part of it, I think, is really around youth sailing. One of the greatest legacy benefits of the America's Cup is the Endeavor program. And I think the people at SailGP who have something called the Inspire program are really excited about merging those two programs together for those 4 weeks in the lead up to the Bermuda Grand Prix, and see how we can, even get more young people involved. Because the reason we got so many people excited, so many young people excited about sailing during the America's Cup, was because those boats are so fantastic. Well, we're talking about those boats being back here now. And because we're talking about kids, there's a whole new collection of kids who are now of the age where they can get involved. And we hope to inspire those kids when this event comes here next spring. Yeah,
I know the SailGP have a series going on, and obviously it wouldn't be as practical what the America's Cup had in Bermuda when they had that junior event that would allow our Bermuda team to go in. But is there any chance that someone can be given an opportunity, or one or two given an opportunity to try and qualify for one of these teams? I know they already have their teams around the world, but any opportunity for a Bermuda sailor to be involved?
Yes, and it's a remote possibility, but it is possible. I can tell you, I had a conversation over the weekend with one of our young sailors who doesn't live here anymore, and he's excited about the prospect. It is a long shot by every definition, but it creates the opportunity, and that's what good sports tourism does, in my opinion. It just creates the opportunity. And so he is now, making those phone calls, sending those emails to see what's possible. And it's really exciting that that is even something that he can do.
Yeah. I always note when the Bermuda Tourism Authority kind of support restaurants and all in help promoting Restaurant Week and promoting all sorts of things, but not getting the same kind of emphasis when it's sporting events, when we should be trying to promote our local sporting event or international sporting events when we have locals and visitors on island. Can we see a change in direction in that? Just a little bit. I mean, we had the Keelboat Championships. Usually we have people down for that. It's a sailing event, but we didn't see anything from the BTA encouraging people to support like we do for the restaurants.
Right. Yeah, I think I don't want to be as bold as saying it's a change in direction, Earl. But this crisis has forced us to reevaluate everything that we do. We are making decisions, I have to tell you, that are completely upside down from what we would have decided before. And it's because the conditions have required that. So I probably can't give you a straight answer in the question that you just asked, but I can tell you we look at everything now with fresh eyes, absolutely everything. And I have to tell you, we wouldn't have, before COVID, we would have never tried to bring an event the scope of SailGP to the island in 5 months. But right now it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, it would be insane to say no to this opportunity, but that's just where we are.
What have we done a survey at Cross Island to ensure the structural facility is still intact of sorts? Because I mean, there's been no activity out there. We've had a few storms and so forth, but are we 100% sure that the structure is able to? Because like you said, we're 5 months away, and things will start to have to be built come January in order to be able to facilitate April start.
No, you're right about that. So Andrew Diaz has been the person leading on Cross Island. And I know they've done some of what you're asking about and probably have to do a little bit more, to be honest. But Cross Island is one of those assets that actually, when you don't use it, it decays. Lengthening its life is about using it all the time. That's really what we're talking about here. So they've gone through with to talk about electrical and plumbing and those sorts of things, so they know where things are. But there's still more work that needs to be done. But both sides, WEDCO and SailGP, are confident they can get the asset to where it needs to be in time for this event. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of the operational people at SailGP are the same operational people who were here in 2017. So they have a lot of confidence around that.
Yeah. How many teams is Sailing GP looking at bringing? Because we knew the America's Cup had 8 teams. How many are the Sailing GP looking at having? Because there is a series.
Yes, and they had 8 teams for the series. The only sort of gray area is how many of those teams are ready for the start of the season. And we're hearing it's 6 or 7 for sure, but potentially 8. So I think we can expect between 6 and 8 teams with pretty good confidence. But our goal is to get to 8 because that has the greatest, economic impact for our community. And also because, Earl, you might know, this is a little bit out of sports, but I think you might know that our service from London switches to Heathrow next spring. And we think that creates great opportunities for us around Europe because of the connectivity would be better. And several of these teams are European teams. So it gives us a great platform to make people more aware of how to get to Bermuda easier in starting next March. Late March is when the service starts. And then, this event starts in late April. So they line up very nicely for us to get greater exposure and greater awareness about Bermuda as a leisure travel destination.
Yeah, we know during the America's Cup, other facilities had to be used, such as Morgan's Point. Has there been any talk of having to use that facility again? Because these are big structures and they need a lot of space to be able to daily restructure the boat, put it in the water, to do all of that. Because it's not just 4 guys picking it up and putting it overboard. It's art and a form to make these things be able to sail each and every day. So has there been any talk of the usage of Morgan's Island? Morgan's Point.
No, I have not heard any discussion around that. Doesn't mean it isn't happening, but I personally have not. My sense was that they felt Dockyard could suit all needs in that regard, either Cross Island or other parts of Dockyard. But that might just be one of those other things that they just have to solve for. But because of the awareness of our location, the people involved are confident they can figure out what the solutions are.
Okay. Well, as we get closer to the event, I'd like to come back with you and just talk more about how things are developing, and maybe we can get Andrew from Redco on as well, because obviously we've already hosted a big event such as the America's Cup, but putting together another event in such a short space of time can be that much more difficult and challenging. Although we have a blueprint, not necessarily means we have all the nails and screws and bolts to go with it.
No, you're right. And listen, I have to tell you, I'd be naive if I didn't say the pandemic probably has a few curveballs to throw us between now and April as well. And we don't even know they're coming, right? So we have to be really agile and nimble on this. But you know what? I think over the years, Bermuda has proven itself to respond pretty well. Like if we all as a community know what the mission is, we just figure out a way to get there. And I think we're going to need some of that with this, because like you said, the runway here is pretty short. And we all know there are a couple surprises for us yet when it comes to public health and airlift and whatever. We just know they're coming. We just don't know what they are yet.
Well, it looks as if 2021 is going to be a big sporting year globally. But April for Bermuda looks like it's going to be the start of the year, because at the beginning of April we're due to host the Carifta Games, and then at the end of April we're due to host the Sailing GP event, the opening races of the series. So we better keep our seatbelts on and hope that
right, because then in the fall we got Bermuda Championship coming back, and
that's right.
We got the World Triathlon Championships. It's going to be a busy year.
Yeah, very busy year, and I want to see how we actually manage it, because we're going to be changing pillars and posts a lot to make this happen for a lot of people around the world. But let me ask you this question: we often, a lot of people say, Bermuda's beautiful, Bermuda's this, Bermuda's that on television. We know that here in Bermuda. What are the benefits of having these things, and what is the return of visitors for Like, let me ask you, what was the return of visitors after the America's Cup? Because one of the big things about having the Grand Slam and then having the Bermuda Championship was the amount of people that come that want to play on the golf course. How does that reflect in sailing? People want to come and sail on the Great Sound.
Yeah, so with sailing on these F-50 cats, right, it is of interest beyond just sailing fans. And that's one of the reasons it makes it very interesting for us. So by that, I mean, I'm not a sailor. I never learned to sail. But you show me those foiling aircraft on the water, and just as a sports fan, I'm interested. And I think that's what's so dynamic about what Sir Russell Coutts and others have created with this franchise. And so I think what the numbers show is that after the America's Cup, Bermuda's return to tourism, let's call it, was accelerated because we had that event. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying Bermuda would not have returned to tourism, because I think it would have, but it got us there faster. Right now, we are in a claw to the death tourism recovery, and so is everybody. What I hope this event does is accelerates our recovery, because the longer tourism businesses are in this crisis, the more we will lose that are never coming back. If we can just make the recovery faster, we will save more of those businesses. That's the main reason for saying yes to this event. It is not going to solve the crisis that we are in, but I hope it accelerates the recovery. And if it does that, it was an excellent move.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I know you have another meeting to go to.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to thank you again. And we look forward to more conversations about SailGP. And I guess things will be coming out fast and furious in the next few weeks on how things will materialize in Bermuda in April. So thanks again.
Thanks very much, Earl. Good to talk to you.
All right.